This episode is sponsored by Agent CRM. If you're in sales and tired of paying 3, 4, or 5 different companies for your email, CRM, funnels, phone, follow-up automation, check out Agent CRM. It's an all-in-one tool that combines all that you need to reach out, nurture, and close your clients. They've got weekly support calls so you can get up and running in no time. Get a free 14-day trial by going to the link below in the show notes. Hello, this is Dan with the Intentional Entrepreneur Podcast. Joining us today is Jeff Russell, a best-selling author, renowned speaker, and accomplished entrepreneur. As the founder of many successful businesses and the author of his latest book, Fire Yourself First, Jeff is an expert in helping business owners break free from the daily grind. Get ready for an insightful conversation as we delve into his proven strategies for achieving business success and living a well-balanced life. Thank you for joining us today, Jeff.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here today.
Before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, can you share a little bit about your background and how you got to what you're doing today?
Well, absolutely. And it's not the typical background. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family. I didn't know anything about business. I grew up in an Army family. So my dad was in the Army and we moved around every few years. And I really didn't know anything other than, you go to work every day, you grind it. And so that was my growing up. Went to college, first of my family to go to college. And so that was exciting. And what do you do when you graduate college? You go work for corporate America and slogging that 9 to 5. And so I did that for a few years. And it was always a challenge, as I always thought, there's got to be more than this, right? I seem to last about 4 or 5 years per company. And then, I would get laid off or I would just kind of quit and go to another company. And one of those last companies I was at, part of their layoff package for me was a year's salary, which was great and very comforting. And then as well, career counseling. So I did career counseling to, better my resume and be a better interviewer. But what actually happened was one of the counselors said, Jeff, I don't think you should get another job. I think you should actually start your own business, because when I'm looking at your profile, it's that of somebody who is an entrepreneur and starts his own business. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about how to start a business. It's not something I was brought up with. And so they suggested I do like a business opportunity. So I kind of paid $10,000 and I went to St. Louis and learned how to be an equipment leasing broker. And so they basically taught you how to do the business, helped you. And that was the start of my entrepreneurial journey. So I started as a leasing broker, and then I leased a lot of equipment to physicians. And then I started specializing in physician financing. And then the physicians were saying, Jeff, how do you actually, use this equipment that I'm buying? So then we actually evolved into training the physicians. So, I guess one of the things I learned is you follow the money. Somebody wants to write you a check. You take that check, especially when you're young and you have nothing else, right? So, right. And then from that, 6 businesses later, I work 10 days a month now. So that was one of my big ahas, and probably the impetus of writing Fire Yourself First, because I had to get out of my operating businesses as I was working much more. I was probably working, 20 hours a day, never mind 10 days a month. So I need to get my time back. And so that's where Fire Yourself First kind of came from.
Can you expand on that? Because I know, the impetus was, working in those previous jobs and businesses. But what was the inspiration for writing this book, Fire Yourself First?
I was offered 8 figures for one of my businesses a couple of years ago, and that was a fair valuation. And by all intents and purposes, I should have taken it. But when I was really thinking, do I want to sell this and what would I do next? And then I started actually, kind of diving a bit deeper, and what would I do? Right. If I sold this business, right? I'm only in my 50s. So I'm like, I have lots of time ahead of me. What would I do? I've heard so many people sell their business and then the second and third and fourth businesses bankrupt them. So I wanted to be very cautious that this business actually ran well. And so I love the business. So there's no reason to get out of the business. So I thought, okay, so how would I get my time back? And so when
Mm,
I look back, there was one business I started 11 years ago. I had a full time job. My partner had a full time job. And we actually set that business to run without us. So I did it 11 years ago by setting up standard operating procedures, hiring the right people, having a team in place to run the business, but I never actually acknowledged that was like very important to do. So when I look back at how I did that to that business and how was doing it to my current business, that's where I'm like, you know what? It comes down to four things. That's really all it is to get my time back. And so for me, it was, I have this saying, live a life well lived. And so it's way more than the business, right? And so if that was what it was going to be, I like to keep my health, my wealth, and my wellness, mental wellness in check. And so the wealth was there. I didn't need the business, right? I could retire. That my health, yeah, I'm in my early 50s, so I need to be careful here. Wellness is good. So I'm like, where am I at? And so I started doing charitable work and other work. I created a family office to kind of funnel my cash that was coming out of this company. So what I found by accident, and many of this stuff was kind of accident. I can't say I'm so smart I did it on purpose, but I basically turned the business into an ATM. So working only
mm,
a few days a month, this business generates cash whether I'm there or not, and it's a
mhm,
way better financial return than if I would have sold it, especially when you take into tax issues and
mhm.
other issues like that.
Something that is always showing up, at least on social media, and I've got four young kids, and so this kind of hits home is like, hey, no one's gonna remember the late hours you work except for your kids, right? And so, can you talk? I don't know if you have kids, but was that kind of how does you now you work only 10 hours, right? How was like how was important to reduce the actual number of hours worked to fit where you are today?
Yeah, and I like to have goals. So
Hmm.
I'm like, you know what? Let's just do 10 days a month and that's it. We'll start from there. And then
Hmm.
it didn't happen overnight. It probably took close to a year to get to that
Hmm.
stage, but let's consciously start doing that. I do have two girls. They're both in college now.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, the biggest regret I have is not spending more time with them when they were younger.
Right.
Absolutely. And so, I think so many entrepreneurs were get stuck in the grind and
Hmm.
we don't
Hmm.
let go. We think we need to do everything. And
Hmm.
that's one of the bottlenecks that you have to get over. And one of my
Hmm.
biggest regrets is not hiring earlier and quicker, right? So
Hmm.
it's not actually, there's no business catastrophe or regret that way. It was
Hmm.
actually all around the people. I should have let go of more stuff, but I think my
Hmm.
ego, I need to be there. I need to be there every day. I need to be first one in, last one out. Well,
Hmm.
that actually doesn't really help your business because one of the things you can't do is you can't think. And so when you're busy just doing busy work, you need the time to think about what's going to happen in 3 years from now, 5 years from
Hmm.
now. And so now I find it more interesting strategizing, right? How is AI going to impact my businesses? How
Right.
is
Right.
the world economy, the geopolitical landscape of the world? How is, electric vehicles? Like how is all that stuff going to impact my business? And now I have the time to think about it. So when I come back to
Hmm.
my team, we're very much on strategy, executing, creating interesting ideas, which I never had before because I was stuck just doing the same thing over and over again. And
Hmm.
it's one thing you've got to innovate. You've got,
Right.
it is changing way more. I bet you it changed more in the last 3 years than the first 15 years of my business.
Hmm. Hmm. Your title is very interesting. Fire yourself first. Can you share a little bit what that exactly means?
So it's more of a frame of mind,
Mm.
right? So you have to when you actually want to let go to grow, you have to
Mm.
look at where you're spending your time. So there's a
Mhm.
couple of things. Entrepreneurs have a horrible habit of getting in and doing menial tasks, things that can be done by someone else. Just
Mhm.
because you're good at it doesn't mean you should do it. Like, I'm not good at cleaning my house, but I don't clean my house, right? I have
Right.
somebody that comes in and does that. I have someone who does my pool. I have someone. So many of us have that in our life, but we don't do
Mhm.
that in our business. Like, if you
No.
don't have an executive assistant, then you're the executive assistant.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
really have to think about what you can offload, because what's your best value is creation, strategy. That's where your value is. Sales should
Mhm.
be able to be done by team members, right? Admin stuff, accounting,
Mhm.
finance. Let people who love doing that do that, and
Mhm.
fire
Mhm.
yourself from doing all these little crazy things. And
Yeah.
so that's really, I wanted to kind of impact people and really hit them that you need to really, you don't have to do everything. And it doesn't have to be done immediately, but you need to fire yourself. The other thing that does is this. So I decided I'm not going to take the 10 million from my company. I'm going to work it because my cash flow is very good. And I would take that cash flow and put it in my family office. And then I would do investments in real estate and alternative investments and other stuff because that's fun for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I.
what a side benefit to that
Mm.
is now I'm not key part of my business. So when I
Mhm.
go to sell it, it's going to be worth way more because I'm not key part of it. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
want to all you entrepreneurs to watch out to make sure that you're required for the business. You actually
Mhm.
devaluing your business.
Right. And I want to emphasize this point too is it's like, you know, can the business run on its own, right? If you are integral part of the business, is the business separate and apart for you, or are you the business? What happens if you pass away, right? How does the value of the business go up, or most likely, go down? And so I think it's important for business owners, and I think entrepreneurs have a certain personality, or maybe most of them, right? It's like, I've got to do everything. I'm the only one who knows how to do this. And there's a lots of good resources out there to really just change your mentality as to, like you mentioned, bring on an executive assistant. It took me like 10 years to figure that particular, hiring obviously hiring time. It's just the letting go, right? Letting go of it is very difficult, but once you let go, it's very liberating, and frees you up. Like you said, where are you most valuable about in your business? Strategy and innovation, and leadership and execution, right? Um, kind of along these lines, right? Hiring smarter people than you, more competent people than you. How do entrepreneurs create an autonomous business? And kind of to add to that, is it kind of dependent on the good or service that you're providing to the marketplace?
Yeah. So great question. So first of all, you need to have a why bigger than you and the
Mm-hmm.
business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I needed. I needed that. Where do I want to be that is independent of the business in 20, 30 years? So have that clear. It's not your business. And when you start your business, that's all you can see is that far. You're
Mm-hmm.
always just like, oh, okay, it's just my business when I can do this. So let's think bigger than that. The
Mm-hmm.
most difficult thing, and most people, if you've ever hired anyone before, hiring people is the worst. I've hired A players and I've hired psychopaths, like, and everyone in between. I've hired liars, cheaters. And so I don't want a bad hiring experience to taint you,
Mm-hmm.
because you need to hire a team, and you may have people now, they may work fine and love this. They actually may be secretly saying, yes, please stay home. Please don't come every day.
Mm-hmm.
Other people, they just want to ask you every single question, right? I can't do
Mm-hmm.
any decision without your input. You have to
Yeah.
untrain them. Now, the fact is, you train them to do that over the last so many years. So now
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to untrain them. I
Mm-hmm.
created an 11-step hiring process. And that's
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the biggest sections of the book, because that's the most difficult part of any business, is hiring the people that come with their batteries already included. They're excited to be there.
Mm-hmm.
They give 110%. They're just not show up because it's a job. So I've
Mhm.
got
Mhm.
that in there. So that's one of the most important things
Mhm.
is that 11-step hiring process.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as well, you got to know the right numbers to watch. So you
Mhm.
have to have
Mhm.
those key indicators. And so for
Mhm.
me, this ties to the employees. Most employees don't really know what's expected of them every day they
Mhm.
show up. So I give them all a scorecard, and this is what's required. If you're in accounts receivable, this is how many programs you should be doing.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you're in shipping and receiving, this is our delivery ETA. If you're in
Mhm.
sales, how many sales? They need to know
Mhm.
that number, and they have to have it like posted so they can see that number every day.
Mhm. Mhm. So I think this topic we're talking about reminds me of the E Myth, right? The classic business book. Either are you the artist, your engineer, or the baker, and uh, and I know you've written several other books, but what makes your book different from kind of similar books on the topic?
I just, for me, I need to be simple.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so when I wrote the book, I just wanted a very simple 4-step process.
Hmm.
I found once I turned 50, lists of 10 items was way too much. And so now I keep my list to 4, maybe 5 at the most. And I
Hmm.
really focus in on that. And
Hmm.
so what I want you to do is I want you to really think, and here's a proven process that I've used in many different businesses, from medicine to training to
Hmm.
finance. So it doesn't matter what the product or service is. This
Hmm.
4-step process works for all of them.
Hmm.
And that's an
Hmm.
important thing. If you really want to unchain yourself from your business, you really want to make sure you have a process that's very clear, concise. And I'm a very tactical guy, so I
Hmm.
don't like to hear a lot of fluff. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of free resources, tools, everything that I use every
Hmm.
day to day, and how
Hmm.
I got to where I am. So for
Hmm.
me, I'm not a consultant. I don't do workshops on this or anything else. This book is like everything. I'm just giving this
Hmm.
back. So for other
Hmm.
entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
because, to be honest, my business cost me my first marriage.
No.
Absolutely. Right. Are my
Mhm.
kids where I wish I spent more time with my kids. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping the younger people with younger kids, entrepreneurs just starting out, will
Mhm.
follow this process. And as
Mhm.
well, if you've been in it for 20, 30 years and now it's time to exit your business, you don't have
Mhm.
to sell it. Like everybody wants you to think, oh, you have to do it this way. No, you could do it however you want. You can
Mhm.
absolutely
Mhm.
keep your business, keep that part of you, keep that cash flow going, which
Mhm.
in certain tax situations is a very good way of managing your wealth.
Mhm.
And so it's very important to just kind of look at the different ways. And I want you to just think, oh, I could do this. And
Mhm.
so I give lots of different examples for any industry in that book as well.
Yeah. One of my favorite books is Profit First by Michael Michalowicz. And, if you haven't read that book before, it's really changing your thinking about your expenses and your businesses. And that's what it is, right? Profit First. But what I like about that book is that at the end of each chapter, it's like there's a to do. And it sounds like that's like your book, Fire Yourself First, right? It's not fluff, right? Not concepts, but hey, at the end, do do these things, or you can do these things to implement the ideas that you read in this book.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much, we've got to do this. If you go to our
Mm.
website, fireyourselffirst.com, there's
Mm.
actually lots of free downloads you can just download right now. So if you wanted
Mhm.
to download my 11-step hiring guide, it's there. You don't have to buy the book. I'd love if you did, but you don't have to. And then as well, the clarity map is another tool. So if you're not clear
Mhm.
on your purpose, that's a good
Mhm.
tool to help you get clear on that. And
Mhm.
Mike is great books. His the toilet paper entrepreneur, like he's written some great ones. Profit First is a brilliant book. And I guess that's where I get a lot of my inspiration. I read 6 business books a month, and I've done
Mhm.
it for the last 20 years. And I'm
Mhm.
not a speed reader or anything. I don't do
Mhm.
it on
Mhm.
double speed. Like I'm old fashioned, old school.
Yeah.
So I read them the old way. So whenever
Yeah.
I have an issue, if it's hiring, it's on finance, it's on
Hmm.
sales, I go and hit books, podcasts, and kind of learn from experts who've already done it.
Hmm.
So I've already been
Hmm.
through it. I've had my business for over 20 years. And so this is just, if you want a shortcut, a lot of
Hmm.
the stress that I went through, fire
Yeah.
yourself first is a good process to follow.
Very good. Hey, we're with Jeff Russell with Fire Yourself Book. So we're kind of near the end here. I want to ask you some rapid fire questions about being a entrepreneur. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right. First question is, who do you look up to?
Oh, that's a very good question. I like Bill. I like Bill Gates.
Hmm. Hmm. Very good. What's the best business advice you've ever received?
Just do it.
Let's do it. Speaking of business books, what's the best business book you've ever read?
It depends what phase I'm at, but I'll tell
Mm.
you, there's a book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
often entrepreneurs are like, they have the squirrel syndrome where it's like, oh, look at this silver thing. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place. And that's a
Yeah.
good, easy read, succinct book
Mm-hmm.
on focusing on what's most important. And I love his analogy of the domino. There's one domino or one thing you can do that's going to knock
Mm-hmm.
over 50 and make things so much easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things I like to do is look at everything that needs to be done and look at that. What's the domino that's going to actually get me the most?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the term 3 feet from gold?
No.
Okay, so it's kind of a
Share it.
metaphor. Yeah, it's a story or a story parable. So the story goes: a prospector buys a piece of land because he hears there's lots of gold out there, and so he buys all the equipment, makes the investments, and he digs, and doesn't hit anything. So finally, he just gives up, sells it to the next person, and that person just digs 3 feet and hits a vein of gold. So, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, how do you know when to pivot? And how do you know that you might just be 3 feet from gold?
You know, Sometimes it's obvious. Like during when COVID hit, my live training business for physicians, where we teach them how to do cosmetic procedures, died. We went from 6 figures a month to $3,000 a month. So that pretty much wiped that business off. Within 90 days, we were actually making triple what we made before doing online training.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think you already know the answer inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to trust yourself because when it really matters, you'll see it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good answer. Um, if you could do one thing over again, what would it be?
Uh, Hire earlier, hire an EA much
Mhm.
earlier.
All right, very good. And if you, sorry, let me step back. You lose your, and you kind of answer this, but I'll ask it again. You lose everything. The only thing you have is your laptop, your cell phone, and an internet connection. How do you rebuild your business in 30 days?
So I lose my business or I lose everything.
Lose your business.
Well, I'm okay. So, first part is because I worked and created all these other businesses and funneled all the cash into my family office, doesn't really matter because I'm set. Having
Yeah.
said that, it's all about your network, right? It's very
Yeah.
important when you meet people, ask them questions, learn about them, and then kind of keep in touch. So I would
Mhm.
certainly just be looking and hitting my network and just saying, hey, who needs some help? Because reading those 6 business books for 20 years has actually created a huge encyclopedia of how
Mhm.
to in me. So there's not too
Yeah.
many business problems I haven't seen. I've been through multiple market cycles, and there's
Mhm.
not a lot that haven't happened to me. So I just share share the experience
All right.
for a fee,
Um,
consulting fee.
sure, sure. Um, you what is the best thing you spent $100 or less on that has improved your business life or your personal life immensely?
Hmm. I'll give you this. Uh, Dan, you're a very clever man.
Says my mom.
Yeah. You know what? I would almost go to a bottle of wine in a restaurant, which led to a conversation with some friends that led to a business that's generated tens of millions of dollars for me.
Mhm. Very good. Hey, we're here with Jeff Russell, author of Fire Yourself First. If we want to learn more about you or get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Best thing is to hit the website. So we just try to make it an informational dump. There's nothing to buy there or anything. You just go to www.fireyourselffirst.com. We also have, I have a Friday email I send out every Friday. And because I
Mm,
read so many books and I talk to a lot of people, I try and give it a 3 minute kind of pep talk or a
mm.
strategy or a tip on how to help firing yourself and unchain yourself from your business. So you can always sign up for that. And that's at fireyourselffirst.com/Friday. And at the very bottom are my blogs and my contact information. LinkedIn's the best way to get hold of me.
All right, we'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, sharing about Fire Yourself First. Hope we can talk again soon.
You bet. Thank you, Dan.
All right. Bye.